This is the Mi 10 Ultra. It is their 10th anniversary model, the special edition of the Mi 10, and they've just packed in all they could possibly put in a phone with a maximum tech here, Xiaomi, and wow, it ticks, the spec sheet is crazy, okay? 120 watt fast charging, that's under 25 minutes to fully charge it. 50 watt wireless charging. We also have 120 Hz refresh rate screen. We've got a 48 megapixel custom main camera, 48 megapixel 5x optical with 120 times hybrid maximum digital zoom. Oil painting mode really is what it is. And then we do have, okay, the Snapdragon 865, 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, UFS 3.1, blazing fast storage. So it comes in a special extra long box here because it does have a larger charger, this one being 120 watts, and it's all about their 10th anniversary Xiaomi. So this particular one here, no, I did not get sent this by Xiaomi. This I bought myself from Trading Shenzhen, and here we have a little bit of text there in Chinese. So someone in the comments, I'm sure, will let us know exactly what this here is talking about. I think it's just all to do with them and, of course, their 10th anniversary, probably talking about their fans and whatnot. So here you can see again, 10th anniversary. So there's the phone. So we'll just pull that out and I will focus on that shortly. But let's have a look first at the contents right here. So we've got the 120 watt charger. Now this thing is very, very quick. This can charge the phone in under 25 minutes officially. And I will time that and give you the exact time later on. And we've got the cable too, of course. So this is a slightly different cable. It's slightly thicker, larger gauge wire than the other typical Xiaomi cables, of course, to cater for that 120 watts. SIM tray tool right there. And we should have a case included, hopefully. Oh, there it is. Okay, underneath, all nicely packaged up. And this is a rubber style one around the outside here, but with a hard plastic with a texture on the back of it. You can hear that probably. And they did include a Type-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter. They haven't been doing this for a long time, but they did also include one with the K30 Ultra, which I have here, and there's going to be a video on that one later on too in the channel. So here is what our Mi 10 Ultra looks like inside the case here. So we can still look at all the transparent back of it, which is great. Good protection for the cameras. So you can see about here that there is a little lip around the outside, which is good. So that means if you place it down on the table, it's not going to scratch that rather large camera lens. In fact, the two different camera lenses right there, edges are covered quite nicely. It does say designed by Xiaomi. And then all the ports are covered too as well. And our buttons on the right side. So the first thing that got me when I pulled this out of the case is that it's a thick phone, okay? Let's have a look exactly because it does not seem that slim at all, rather chunky. So about 10.2 millimeters, including now the cameras. That brings it up then to about 11.6. And it's hefty too. This is a heavy phone. It does have a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, but because it's got a lot of tech packed in here, it's kind of understandable that it is heavy. 221 grams heavy to be precise. So I do have obviously the transparent version. Now what you're looking at, the internals right here is in fact just like a decal. It's a sticker over the components. There's a bit of a gap just right here where the camera module protrudes out. You can actually see a little bit of circuitry and things behind it. You're not actually looking straight at the internals, but that does let us know where the coil is right here for its wireless charging. It supports 50 watt wireless charging. NFC is right here, and the glass has a curvature to it. This is Gorilla Glass 6, and a very good build quality to this phone, even though it is, yes, a little bit chunky, as I mentioned before. It's thick, it's not thin, it's not light, but it's a solid quality build that it has. Now, when you take a look at the cameras with this particular phone here, Xiaomi has done an excellent job just to give us a broad range of cameras. So we have a super wide 12 millimeter equivalent 20 megapixel ultra wide camera, f2.2 aperture, which is this one right here. Now 20 megapixels means it captures a lot of detail. We then also have a 12 megapixel portrait camera, 2x optical zoom. It does also have dual pixel autofocus. The main camera, the main sensor is 48 megapixels. This is a custom sensor from them. The lens on this one is f1.9, and then the 120 times digital zoom camera, also 48 megapixels. This one has an aperture of f4.1. Now at 20 times digital zoom, as you'll see later on from my samples, it is an oil painting, but at around 20 and 10 times zoom, you definitely have usable photos, and of course at the 5 times optical, it is a periscope camera, but it's more marketing. 120 times zoom, I doubt people are going to actually use because it doesn't produce a usable photo. And our front-facing camera, this one inside the cutout is 20 megapixels with an f2.3 aperture. Right up the top, we do have an IR transmitter, which is kind of rare actually in a flagship phone. Antenna line can be seen right there. Top microphone, and here is a little tiny port. This is in fact a little gap here for our loudspeaker. So that's where the sound is transmitted through, the one of 2 loudspeakers. And the other loudspeaker is in the typical location, microphone, Type-C port, and our SIM tray. The SIM tray takes 2 nano SIMs only, no micro SD card support. There is a gasket around it, but we don't have an official IP rating with this phone, and we also don't have video out support from that Type-C port. And the power buttons on the right, these ones are made of metal, and I have very easy access to it to unlock, which is good, and they don't rattle. It is of a premium high quality build, everything with this phone. So this phone has a full HD plus screen in it. It's 120 Hz is the maximum refresh rate. And yes, it is an AMOLED panel in here, or OLED. And it's a really nice screen. Now, maximum brightness tops out about 750 so nits. It can be seen and it's legible in direct sunlight, which is great. Not all phones are. A lot of AMOLED panels out there will only be about 400 nits, but this one is very, very bright. It is very fluid. Now the screen on it, curvature on the edges. I'm not a huge fan of curved AMOLED screens, and I would have preferred to have had a flat screen, but I do know why they've done that because of, yes, the thickness of the phone. It does, however, one thing, with the gestures, having the curvature makes the gestures easy. You don't have screen, for example, protectors digging into your finger. Now, yes, there is a screen protector pre-applied with this one when you get it out of the box, which is great because I don't know about you, I'm hopeless at putting them on. So the screen, very, very bright, really good. The adaptive brightness, I find, I don't like adaptive brightness myself, but I find it's actually pretty good in this model, not bad at all. Fingerprint unlocking time. So you can unlock with your fingerprint in about, you see, what is that, like 1-2 seconds or so. It is very quick. Face unlocking is even faster. And so far in my, well, about a day using this phone, it is very quick and accurate, so I don't have any issues with that. Now, MIUI 12 is what it's running, Android 10. You can by default, it's not with the App Store, but I enable it. I prefer to have the App Store. Another reason is because this is the Chinese ROM, and that's all you can get at the moment. I don't know if there's going to be a global version. If I was to swipe up, without the App Store enabled, you get the Chinese search engine come up. So there's a little bit of bloatware originally. I've removed it, and more on that later too. But first, let's get into a few things with this brilliant display that's in here. I really do like it. Now, you're seeing some terrible banding coming through. Now, why I haven't got this on at the moment is just to show you what some people actually see with their own eyes at lower brightnesses. I don't have this problem, but anti-flicker mode, this is our DC dimming. Really good to have this. You watch, as soon as I enable this, there we go. Like magic, it is gone, and it's perfect for so many people. So great to have this feature. This is something that my Tab S7 Plus I just reviewed in the channel recently is missing, and I really wish it had. Dark mode, of course. Color scheme, so by default, it is on the auto, but I do actually prefer standard that looks a little more correct. So really nice screen, good brightness. Everyone is going to be super happy, I believe, with this one, even though, yes, it is curved. Now, there is one thing I want to discuss too, still talking about the display, and that is if I jump in here to the settings, you'll see that we can then select 120 Hz, of course, but what happens? It disables the DC dimming. So DC dimming is only working at 60 Hz, unfortunately, and that's a shame. I don't think the tech actually does work for 120. Will it work with 90? Hopefully. Now, I'd love to see a third option in here. Xiaomi, please, are you watching this video? 90 Hz, the combination of their battery life and performance and smoothness. Now, at the 60 Hz, 60 frames per second UI, you do sometimes notice that, hang on, these animations just look a little stuttery, janky at times, and they could be smoother. Something I've been talking about for a while with Xiaomi. But overall, performance and launch times is so good and excellent. It's just those areas of improvement, I think, with the touch response times could be a little better with this phone. And yeah, I think the animations could be smoothed out. So what about performance? Synthetic benchmarks here, this thing is an absolute monster. That GPU score is the highest I have seen. So even though this is not the Snapdragon 865 Plus, we don't actually need it. Not with this kind of optimization here from Xiaomi. So pushing really good scores here. This, in fact, I think is the best I have seen now, even beating out the Republic of Gamers 3 phone, which also does, that one has the Snapdragon 865 Plus. This model doesn't. Very, very good scores here. Now, it does have dual carrier frequency GPS. That means it picks up on the level 1 and level 5, which you can see. Now, accuracy, because it's a Qualcomm, is limited and will sit at 3 meters of accuracy. And the compass is working well. That's in this hardware, of course. Now, excellent. Just absolutely blazing fast storage speeds. Look at this, UFS 3.1, but the main area to focus on is look at these random reads and writes. So quick. I think this is almost the fastest I have seen. It's right up there. I have to check my spreadsheet with all my scores, but I believe it's definitely in the top 3. This is a really fast phone. So getting out of that one, let's have a look at camera 2 API support, level 3. Great, so Gcam ports for this particular phone in the future. And we do have a Widevine level 1 cert. Being a Chinese phone, I didn't expect this. Normally the Chinese ROMs don't have it, but they've started to do this recently, Xiaomi, which is really good to see. Now Netflix, it's not actually in the Google Play Store. You need to sideload it, find an APK file, download it, and install it, and then it will work. I am on the latest firmware version at the time of this particular video here, and you get about 220 gigabytes free on this 256 gigabyte version. Onto our audio quality. So I've placed one voice call and things sound normal, fine. There's nothing there that worries me. And I tested out the Type-C to 3.5 adapter. Very, very good quality. Very happy with that. And of course, you can use Bluetooth audio. Xiaomi's Bluetooth optimization, to me, happens to be one of the better ones out there from the mobile brands. So loudspeakers, we've got the speaker right at the top. And then, of course, the one down the bottom here. And this is the Red Magic. It's the 5S with its dual loudspeakers, which I think happens to be the loudest and the best in terms of loudspeakers. So I'll do a bit of a comparison between both of these on just how they sound. To me, the Mi 10 Ultra is good, but not quite as good as this one. So this is the front-facing camera, and I'm shooting this one at home because I don't have to wear a mask here, but by law you have to wear masks, but not at your house, of course. So what we have here is really different from Xiaomi, and finally, after how long? So many years of complaining about no electronic image stabilization, we finally have it with a front-facing camera on the Mi 10 Ultra, which is absolutely great. Now, audio quality across all video is very, very good as well. 320 kilobits per second, and as I walk ahead you can see the stabilization is doing a very good job here at removing the shakes and tremor. So this is 4K 30 frames per second. You can shoot 4K 60 as well, but my video is in 4K 30, and I'm walking ahead. Very steady footage, really good electronic image stabilization here. Now when you pan around, depending on how fast you pan, you will see some judder coming through because of the electronic image stabilization. I'm now just going to run ahead. Small jog, and you can see that stabilization is excellent. Very, very good. This is the ultra wide now, so we fit so much more in the shot. Not quite as sharp, however, the quality. And again, very good image stabilization. Walking ahead. And now jogging. And lastly, this is 4K 30 again using the 5x optical camera. Very good. I'm just doing this all handheld. I'm going to start walking ahead now, but pointing at the clock. And you can see a few tremors coming through, but remember, this is 5x optical. Overall, that is very good. Most people will stand still when they're shooting. And we do have a little bit of digital zoomy here that I'm going to do very slowly. Take a look at this pigeon. He's flying away. And this is 8K video now, which does have some electronic image stabilization. It's not 6K upscaled to 8K. That's why it's only 24 frames per second. And depending on where you're shooting, you may see some huge frame dips. That's more in lower light and difficult conditions. So I'm going to pan around here very, very slowly. This quality, very sharp. Does look really great, especially when you look at it on even just a 4K monitor. You notice it's so sharp, but it's a shame it's not 30 frames per second.
So gaming performance, no surprises here that all the titles out there, super fluid, playable frame rates. Now, Real Racing 3 that I'm playing right now and driving really bad, by the way, this one runs with an unlocked frame rate. So there's no frame rate cap and you can get these very smooth 120 frames per second the whole entire time. Other games like, for example, Call of Duty. This one on the highest possible settings runs only at 60 frames per second, but it does look very, very good and it's super fluid. I don't see any lag or slowdown with this one at all. Another game that does support an uncapped frame rate is Grimvalor. Good looking game, side-scrolling one here, and yes, super smooth at 120 frames per second. So all the games out there, they are going to run pretty much the best that you will see on Android. No problems. Very, very smooth and fast. Thermals are good as well. It only gets up to about 43 degrees. And as you see later on in the end of this video, very shortly, I will show you that it actually gets hotter charging and not gaming. So we have some impressive wireless speeds if you're close to your router. Connected up to my Wi-Fi 6 router, I am seeing over 900 megabits per second on average speed, which is great. That is super fast. It's a new record, the fastest I have seen yet on a phone. However, at a distance in my Spot 2 where I test my other phones, it doesn't actually perform that well at distances. So if you have your wireless router on the other side of your house, you're going to get very low speeds here because it's just getting over 127 megabits per second. Now, to put that into perspective, the Redmi K30 Pro Zoom that I have, that can actually get 360 average at the same exact spot. So something's up with the wireless speeds if you're not close to your router with lower signal strength. I hope it's just a firmware update is needed to improve the performance of the wireless speeds here. Now, battery charge time is so quick. This is a new record setter, of course. 20 minutes is all it took to go from 16% to 100, and to fully charge, you're looking about 25 minutes or even slightly under. Really, really quick there, amazing speeds. Now, battery life is the biggest con with a phone with a 120 hertz screen. So I calibrate my display to 200 nits. I run a fixed
battery life test, because the other tests that I used to do, they were variable, and there's too many variables, of course. But what I have here is an average result. This is not amazing, considering that the K30 Ultra with its Dimensity 1000 Plus chip gets a much better score here. As you can see, 11 hours and 37 minutes versus 8 hours and 47. Both of them were at 200 nits of brightness, and both were running the displays at 120 hertz. An amazing result here for the K30 Ultra, but not so great from the Snapdragon 865 from the Mi 10 Ultra here. Now, of course, one of the trade-offs of charging a phone in under 25 minutes at 120 watts is that it's going to get quite warm. So this is the back of the phone, which will reach up to, I have seen a maximum of 42 degrees. It's almost there. And I'll flip it over now to the front. And you see the front is getting up to quite a toasty now, 43. But it's still not as hot as the power supply. That will reach 50 degrees. Are these temperatures okay? I'm sure Xiaomi's engineers has tested this a lot. I think it is fine. As long as my phone's not getting up to 50, then I'm not too worried about this. Really premium build, fast fingerprint unlocking. I mean, it's not the fastest I have seen. I think still the P30 Pro from Huawei happens to be one of the fastest for me, but it is quick. It's probably the animation slowing it down a little bit there. Now, there's a lot of things that are going on with this phone in terms of cameras. From the samples you saw that it does perform really, really well. Now, taking up to about, I'd say 20 times or even sometimes 10 for me personally. 10 times zoom will be about as far as I will go. But yes, we've got that opportunity that you can take 120 times zoom photo. Other flagship phones have similar features as well. And is it usable? I mean, it's not. It's like an oil painting. You saw. I mean, it's great to say, hey, look, those are people. But it's just washed out. It's not really. Who's going to be using it? I think it's just, I'm going to classify it as a gimmick, and I know there are probably some extreme fanboys in the comments are going to have a massive go at me for saying that, but it is, come on. I'm not talking just about this phone, I'm talking about the Samsungs as well, and anyone else using a crazy digital zoom. It's just not usable. Instead of that, just give us, I don't know, up to 20 max or something. That's fine, I think, for most people. Anyway, enough about those cameras, that they are really, really good, very impressive, low light great. Or what about the other things to do with the OS? Very good performance and speed. It is very fast. I mean, you expect that. At 120 hertz, there seems to be no lag, no stutters. Launch times for everything is excellent. But I did notice that using it at 60 hertz, the animations are still not running. You can clearly see at times at 60 frames per second, which would be matching the UI then, the refresh rate. But when you put it onto 120 hertz, obviously it's pumping out way more than 60. We could be up to 120 frames per second, the UI then, and you don't see any of those detectable problems. There was the occasional time, you may have seen it in the video, that when I touched the screen, it didn't seem to respond quite as good as I would think there with the gestures and the touch response time. Now, it could be just because I need to remove the screen protector. I will probably end up doing that, but I want to keep it on for now because I don't want to scratch it. It's such a nice phone. The other thing too, well, the battery. The battery looks like the biggest con, and this is to be as expected. I mean, you don't need to even have a phone in your hands or review it to know that 120 hertz is going to absolutely kill a battery. And the screen on time is going to be horrendous. And I've seen this with other phones, okay, and with tablets as well with 120 hertz. So we've got the option of 60, but I would really love, and I'm sure it could be implemented with software. Xiaomi, if you're watching this video, come on, please, firmware update, 90 hertz, just give us that at least. It's a good sweet spot between the battery saving and then the fluidity of the UI. I think a lot of people would probably be using that as default. So many people ask me, do you think it's worth this phone to import it? Is it a viable option here in Europe? Well, if you don't need LTE band 20, I would say go for it if you don't also need other languages, okay? That's really the only major things holding this phone back here, or outside of China, that is. If you need LTE band 20 or 28, if you're from France, it's not here, okay? So you won't have that. You'll be stuck on slower speeds. You might have to be on just 3G, okay, which is not great. The other thing is, well, you're going to have a bit of bloatware, but that's not too much of an issue. The bloatware in Chinese can all be removed and uninstalled. It is there in the beginning, but yeah, it's really down to that, I think. I would go for it if you're after a phone with some fantastic cameras and zoom performance. So far, with my testing here, I think this is it. This is very, very good, impressive. Oh, and finally, electronic image stabilization with a front-facing camera. Wow.